have always had this like creative inclination. Like I felt my mom's an artist. Like there was this thing in me that I knew I was a creative person. I just hadn't quite found my outlet.
Welcome to Imagined Here, where you will hear stories of local creative talent. Let's get started with your host, Andy Crowner.
Welcome to episode number 2 of the Imagined Here podcast. Today we sit down with Morgan Terlouw from Verdigris Photography and Design in Ottumwa, Iowa. I was looking for a photographer for the first interviews, and Morgan's work just really stood out. While she is self-taught, you can tell in her work that she just has a masterful eye for light. I hope you'll check out this interview and then head over to imaginedhere.com and type Morgan in the search bar to see the show notes and click over and see her work. I think Morgan's story is starting as a mom-tographer, as she puts it, and having a lot of things that she had to juggle in real life is really a good story for anyone that wants to get started creating but feels like they have a lot going on right now. Without further ado, here is the interview with Morgan. Welcome to Imagine Here, Morgan Terlouw from Verdigris Photography and Design in Ottumwa, Iowa. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on.
I appreciate it. You are interview number 2, so excited to have you here today and welcome, and we'll get right into the questions.
Sounds good.
All right, so Morgan, just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you create, and give us a little glimpse into your personal life.
That is a challenge. My personal life is crazy, but I am a photographer. I am a mom, a wife. I have 3 kids, and our daily life is just bonkers. So I got started in photography kind of being a mom-tographer. It's not like my most proud thing, but it's true. I started photographing my kids, and we were kind of in a crazy stage of life, and I thought I should probably document this. So picked up a camera and it kind of, I don't know, it just grew and grew, and I kept kind of seeing where it would go, and it's taken me a lot of fun places. But yeah, my husband is a graphic designer and videographer, filmmaker by trade, and he works for a church in Ottumwa, the Bridge, and he's also worked at several other fairly big churches. We at one point moved to the Chicago area to help start a church, and he was doing the graphic design kind of marketing work for them. So yeah, so that's kind of a little bit about me. We have some crazy history, so I don't know how far you want to go in.
Well, why don't you take us to the day that you actually decided, you know what, I want to start doing photography as a career?
Yeah. So I don't know if there's just one day. So we have 3 kids. Our middle child he had some special needs. Like he was born really sick. He was born with congenital CMV. So he quite nearly died after he was born. We spent a few, 6 weeks in the NICU with him. So that was kind of a life-changing moment, kind of big eye-opener. And a lot of the things that you think you believe kind of just get everything, the perspective just shifts. And so coming out of that, I had this completely different appreciation for pretty much everything that I saw. I just viewed the entire world differently. And I have always had this like creative inclination. Like I felt my mom's an artist. Like there was this thing in me that I knew I was a creative person. I just hadn't quite found my outlet. And we had a camera laying around, and I picked it up one day and just was like, I'm going to take pictures of the kids as they grow up. And, I don't know how many days we have with Jude, our middle boy. I don't know what things are going to look like with him. So I should document it. So that's where it started. And I was like, oh, well, that picture's not too shabby. And so then I'm like, well, I need to learn how to edit. And I just kind of kept it snowballing. And people started to ask me if I'd take their picture. And then I just kept going after it. It just grew and grew and turned into a business. So.
What was your first paid gig?
I think it was probably a family session. I think that I started out trying to get into this family photography world. Since I'm like, I photograph my kids, I should probably be able to photograph other people's kids. So yeah, I think that was it. It was a family session. It was like my a dentist, I think, or a dental hygienist or something. Word of mouth, like, is my favorite marketing tool, by the way. But yeah, I think that was what it was. My dental hygienist wanted a family session.
So one thing everyone listening to this will kind of have in common is we all have a fear of actually getting started and doing our work for others. What was some of that fear that you saw right in the beginning, and how did you conquer that?
Oh, for sure. Fear is the biggest obstacle. I was mostly fear of judgment from other people. I mean, it was hard for me to take myself seriously at like thinking I'm just a mom-tographer. I just think I can take pictures because these are my kids and I love them, and nobody's going to say otherwise because they're my kids. So it took me a while to realize, like, no, I actually have something else here, and like I'm actually a legitimate photographer. And to kind of break out of that label that I had put on myself for some reason. Not that mom-tographers are bad. I think it's very important that moms take pictures of their children. I wanted to be something more than that. And so it took me a long time to shake that label and, yeah, to really like accept that I was a photographer, to be able to stand next to somebody and introduce myself like, hi, I'm Morgan. I'm a photographer. It took a while.
Now, you did not attend school for photography. Is that correct? You're self-taught?
I am. I'm self-taught. Yes.
That's something that my first interview with McKenna McCaw from Neat and Navy Blue was the same way. She just started researching and looking on Google and YouTube on how to do things and taught herself. I think that's something very interesting now that we can all do this day and age, is just learn that way.
I think so too. Learn at your own pace, University of Google or whatever it is. Yeah, I think it's great. It's amazing. And I mean, yeah, there's just so much information available that I feel like even 10 years ago, like it just wasn't the same. So it's very cool.
During your start here, what's the best advice you've been given?
I don't know. I think that it's like a sort of a cliche thing, but sort of what I say in my head a lot is like, if not, when? Like, if I don't go after this, when am I going to do it? If you don't say yes to something, like, when's the next opportunity going to present itself? Like, you never know. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen. And that part of it, that viewpoint is probably largely shaped because of our experience. But became very obvious that like I needed to try things before before I wasn't able to do it anymore. So this was, if ever I'm scared, that's kind of usually what's going on in my brain. Like, you need to try it, or you need to accept that it might not ever be a possibility again.
That's the same exact place I'm at right now. Starting a podcast. It was, if I'm not going to do this today, when am I really going to step out and do this? So
exactly.
Right. Morgan, one thing we all have in common is we have all failed in our careers and in our lives. So take us to the day, the exact moment, and tell us the story of one time during your photography career that you really failed.
I feel like there are multiple. There are so many multiple. I've had a couple hard drive failures that like just it makes my stomach like turn just to even think back to it. Those were a couple hard lessons, and to have those conversations with clients is just the worst. So I've learned I've like quadruple backed up nowadays. But early on, I had a couple big hard drive losses that just got me. I've also, really, and I'm a perfectionist. So like anytime that I deliver work that doesn't like wow a client, or if they're, if I'm not like, oh my gosh, I love your work, blah, blah, blah. Like, if that's not the reaction I get, I feel like I've failed. So I'm just constantly trying to overachieve and kind of get to that next level or reaction or whatever it is. If I don't make my clients happy, it's like, it is the worst for me. So I don't know. That's not a super specific instance, but yeah, I feel like I fail if my clients aren't happy.
Have you ever lost the wedding photos?
I have recovered. I have had a hard drive that wedding photos were on that had not been delivered, and that drive kicked the bucket. Thankfully, I was able to recover them, but it's a lot of work and it's expensive, so it was a big, money loss on my end. It's just stressful for everybody. So yes, I pretty much take every precaution now to not have that happen, because I would probably die of a heart attack if I actually lost a client's wedding images. And so, oh golly, it makes my stomach hurt thinking about it.
Well, let's switch this story around then, and why don't you do the same thing and take me to an exact moment. Tell us a story of a time you kind of had an "I made it" moment. Sometime you really went, "Wow, I'm here, I'm doing this."
Yeah, I'm a part of a lot of Facebook groups, just for networking and for looking at other photographers' works and things like that. But one of my favorite groups, and probably the biggest group that I pay attention to, is called Looks Like Film. And when I was first getting started, I stumbled upon this group. I don't even know how I found it, but I mean, these are incredible photographers, like truly incredible photographers. And I just always looked at their work with amazement and never thought I was in any way comparable. But within the first year of starting my business, I submitted it was just like a selfie of my husband. I mean, not with a camera, or not with my phone, but with my camera. My husband and I were out taking pictures, and there was a window and our reflection was in it. And I just was like, hey, this is fun. And I just snapped a picture, totally kind of joking. I ended up editing it, and it looked pretty fun. And so I submitted it to this group, and in this group, if they get a certain number of likes on these images, then they will publish the pictures on a blog, essentially. So anyway, so the first time that I had a picture in this group that had, it was like something like 300 likes or whatever, I thought, like, oh my goodness, like it's such a little itty bitty thing too, but I remember feeling so excited and like understanding like that I was more than, that mom-tographer, like that I had this skill and that people were like agree. I don't know. That was for a measly 300 likes. I felt like I had actually made it. But then, I mean, along with that, sort of in a similar vein, like the first time that I actually had an image published somewhere, like that makes it real somehow for me. Like the tangible evidence is cool.
I was getting ready for this interview and kind of reviewing your webpage and Instagram and things. And I actually saw the picture that you were talking about right now, where you're kind of shooting into a window, but you're looking at him. It's a great photo.
Thank you. Yeah, it was so like random too. Like it was just the right moment.
That feedback from others, that positive feedback, like you talked about, that's so huge. And we see that feedback so immediately now, and how many likes we get and how many comments we get. And it's hard to kind of temper that with the negative comments we've all seen too, right? Your lighting's not right on this, or those kind of things. Do you have many of those, and how do you kind of block those out?
I wouldn't say that I've had too much negative. Most of the groups that I dabble in they're pretty positive, and there's always going to be. I'm my own worst critic, so there's pretty much nothing that anyone could say that is worse than what I'm probably saying to myself in my brain. So I mean, thankfully I really don't think I've had too much harsh criticism, but and I also try not to. It's hard not to nowadays. It's hard not to want people to like your work online.
Right.
But I think it's important to, get it out there, even if 3 people like it. Like, it's important to keep kind of pushing work out there, because it's like a comfort zone breaker. And the more you push, you just never know what opportunity is going to be on the other end of it, or what growth is going to happen because of it. So I try to. Even though I don't like when only 3, like I would prefer 300 people like a picture, like right. 3 people, I appreciate them too.
So Morgan, tell me what you are working on right now, this moment.
Weddings. I am busy in wedding season, and senior sessions too. I've had a lot of senior sessions this year, which is really fun. I like senior sessions. But yeah, I got my editing queue is stocked up with weddings right now. So it's fun. It's fun and a lot of work.
So as you look at the next couple of years, what do you see in your future? What kind of future goals do you have?
I would love to just see this thing keep growing. An avenue, that maybe I'm trying to decide what. I always hear you should specialize, kind of like find your niche and go after that. And I don't know what my niche is. Maybe I like weddings, I like seniors. I kind of maybe like family sessions less, but one area that I've been loving is like brand photography. And I've had the opportunity to do that a little bit more this year. And I would love to kind of push into that sector and see, what I can do. Kind of regionally, it's not a huge thing. It was probably easier to do near Chicago, but I love like helping to define that identity and just communicating a brand and be able to make custom images. There's so much stock footage and content everywhere nowadays, but just to be able to hear someone say like, create an image based on what someone is telling you about their brand. I think that's fun and exciting. So I would love to push into that.
I think it's a great idea to kind of find your niche. And that's something I've always been taught is to niche 3 levels down. So not only was I starting a podcast, but then I was starting a podcast that featured local people and then specifically kind of local artists and creatives.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
I also saw on your website that one of your goals was to start creating albums.
Yeah, I would love to offer products. It's something that just life space hasn't really allowed me to do. I just don't have time, but I would love to be able to just create this like experience with me, kind of, from start to finish. If you book a wedding with me, like this is the Verdigris experience, and albums I think would be a really beautiful part of that. And it's just so nice to have tangible products and, heirloom type things. That's a goal of mine. If I keep going into weddings, like I definitely want to try to do that at some point.
All right. Well, Morgan, who has influenced you and your photography?
My first probably influence for photography was Andrea Lindquist. I don't know if you've heard of her. I think she's based out of Seattle, maybe. She's a pretty big photographer. And I loved her style probably first, and then the more I kind of followed along and maybe, I don't know, not stalked is not the word, but I just kind of, would keep up with what she was doing and on her website and things. And she is a bold artist, I would say, and I admire that part of her. Like, I think that she has found a way she has this voice in the way that she presents herself, and maybe it's just like that's just who she is. But I admire that. So it started out with her style was sort of something that I looked up to, but then it really more turned into her like artistic voice and just how bold and fearless she is with it. So yeah, I look up to people like that and that just are unapologetic about who they are and what their craft is. And I think that is the most beautiful thing, and that inspires me really more than anything, I would say.
Well, I will go out and find a link to her work and include it on your show notes page, which anybody can find on imaginehere.com, and they can just type in your name, Morgan, and find that information along with everything that we talk about today.
Cool.
So, Morgan, what is a book that you would recommend to our listeners? Something you've recently read or given away?
Yeah, this is a great one. I kind of dabble in this book. I kind of pick it up randomly and read random bits of it here and there. But it's called Art and Fear. I can send you the name. It's by David Bales, and the subtitle is Observations on the Perils and Rewards of Art Making, and it really kind of talks about that like fear obstacle that all artists have, and just how to break through it. And yeah, it's a good book for creatives, I think, to try to, push through if you get stuck or burned out or whatever. It's just kind of it's a good, helpful thing to get some encouragement or to get new inspiration.
Imagine to your listeners, we know that you like audiobooks, so we've teamed up with Audible to bring you a special offer. Visit imaginedhere.com/audible for a free 30-day Audible trial and 2 free audiobooks. You can cancel at any time, and you get to keep your audiobooks forever. All right, Morgan, what is one of the best physical gifts you've received or given under $100?
Yeah, this one, I have a bracelet for my husband. I don't know what it is. It's brass. I'm not sure what it's made out of. He got it on Etsy, I think. But so coming out of my son's birth experience, and I mentioned this earlier, but like 2 years after that, my husband was diagnosed with cancer. So coming out of that experience, I had like my word for the year was fearless, and that feels so cliche, but one of the meanings, if you look up the definition of fearless, is calmly resolute. And so that became sort of my mantra, is that I was going to go fearlessly into things, but really to be calmly resolute just felt very empowering. So he bought me a bracelet, and he had it, and it says calmly resolute. So I try to wear that whenever possible as a reminder, and it's kind of pretty. So it was under $100, and it was the best gift.
I love it. All right. Well, one of the great things about having kind of a local podcast is we can talk about things that are actually right here in our area. So do you have any favorite venues that you like to go to shoot, or places or events you go to show your photography?
I haven't shown it much, but I do. I mean, I love to try to stay in Ottumwa. Ottumwa is not known for being very awe-inspiring, but it is a really unique and quirky town, and it has a lot of beautiful old architecture. So I love to try to make it beautiful again, and to show people that this place is cool and has value, and and whenever possible, I try to bring people here and do, like, a lot of my senior sessions this year have been in like downtown Ottumwa, and with using some of the like alleys and the old buildings, and there's like a ton of beautiful parks here. So I think Ottumwa doesn't get a lot of credit, and I'm trying to I'd like to try to change that. So.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of old historic buildings and places, and even just the streets themselves and the waterfronts in our area that are just beautiful.
Sure, they really are. Yeah, all along the rivers, there's just like amazing, amazing little spots. I love it.
Morgan, one other thing I saw about you is that you're really into music. So tell me what you're listening to right now.
Oh, right now. Well, I'm actually listening to Dave Matthews Band right now. And I can't remember what the song is called. It's like Samurai Cop or something like that. But it really, like, the chorus in it, I've always been a Dave Matthews Band fan. But this is a newer release, which is exciting. But this song goes like, "Oh Joy Begin." And so I love that sort of, like, it's just the lyrics are beautiful. And then plus it's Dave Matthews, so it's good stuff.
That's one band I haven't been able to catch live yet. And my sister went down and saw them in New Orleans a few years ago, and I'd love to see them live.
They're amazing. They're the best. I love doing it. Oh, so good.
A lot of our listeners are interested in, if they want to get started in photography, actually kind of hearing what gear people use. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're shooting with?
Yeah, I shoot Canon. So I have 2 camera bodies that I use most often. The 5D Mark III and then Canon 6D. I'm hoping that I can upgrade to the 4, hopefully maybe this year. So I use Canon gear. The 5D Mark III is amazing. It's like a workhorse camera. And then I use prime lenses. So like I usually have my 50 millimeter on. I also love the 135. That focal length is really beautiful. So yeah, I keep it simple.
We'll have links to a lot of those gear pieces. Thanks for sending those over, and we'll link to those in your show notes page as well.
Cool.
So take a few minutes here. This is one that I think is kind of important. If you started over today, learning to do photography and actually jumping out and starting to do it professionally. Knowing everything that you know now, what would you do?
Oh yeah. I think about this a lot actually. I would shoot constantly. Like I would always be taking pictures. I feel like I have to divide my time a lot now because I have, a family, and whatever business needs. Like sometimes you get so far along into the business that you don't shoot as much like maybe personal or growth related work. So I would just every opportunity go out and take pictures and get up with the sunrise and stay through sunset and just take pictures and see what things you're drawn to. Yeah, the idea of being able to do that is it's wishful for me now, but I think that is the best place to start for a newer photographer or somebody wanting to go professional, is just take massive amounts of pictures of everything.
How about any tips for somebody that may be dabbling in photography now and hasn't started doing anything professionally or actually getting paid for their work yet? How could they go about kind of finding their first clients?
I think relationships are everything. Word of mouth has been a really vital marketing method for me. It's just, but really, valuing your clients and maybe treating them not so much like clients, but especially the early ones, but like friends. I don't know. I want to treat my clients like they're my friends. Like I want everything, especially like my wedding clients. Like I want them to feel like they know me, I know them, that we have this relationship. And I think when you open yourself up to people and allow them to, like this understanding kind of happens. And I think when people come away from that, I think that's when they're more likely to talk about you and to, spread the word about what you're doing. But yeah, I just think that word of mouth and meeting as many people and talking about what you're doing like that's vital. Also, along with that, I would think that no opportunity is too small. So sometimes it doesn't always feel awesome to, maybe do work that you think is not in your wheelhouse or is silly or, I don't know. But I think that there's opportunities that arise out of like the most bizarre places. And I think that you just don't know unless you try it, and you don't know who knows, that weird opportunity that might pay $25, like that could lead to something much bigger. You just never know. So that's usually what I recommend is, create really strong relationships, make people feel special, and go after everything.
That really resonates with my own experience too. I have clients that I work with today that I started working with when I was 18 years old, 20 years ago. And just by continuing to show them value, they continue to use me and hire me for projects.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Well, I want to encourage listeners to jump over to imaginehere.com and type Morgan into the search bar, and we'll actually have links to your work and your Instagram. And I've just been really impressed with your work, and so I hope they'll take a minute to jump over and see that for themselves.
Yes, thank you. I hope so too. Say hi while you're there.
Well, why don't you leave us with kind of one last parting piece of guidance and tell us how fans can connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that no matter where you are in life, I think, if my story of having a sick child and going through a cancer scare with my husband and moving all over craziness and 3 kids, like no matter where you are in a journey of life, I think that you're capable of starting a passion and going after a passion, and it's not too late, and fear should not be an obstacle. And I just encourage people to try it, see what happens. If not now, when?
If not now, when?
If not now, when? And then, if they want to connect with me, I'm on Instagram. That's probably my most up-to-date place, but I'm also on Facebook. You can catch me at my website, pretty much anywhere.
Okay, and what is your website?
Verdigris Photography and Design.com. All strung together.
All right. And of course, they can head over to imaginehere.com and type Morgan or Verdigris in the search bar. And the show notes page will show up with links to all the information we talked about today, as well as links to your website and Facebook and Instagram. So thank you very much, Morgan, for being on today. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Head over to imaginehere.com and type Morgan in the search bar, and you can see today's show notes with everything that we talked about today, as well as links to go over and see Morgan's work. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next episode.